Hello and welcome to the Lithics Study Society's Festival of Lithics online conference for 2020. Today's talk will be on an early North American Paleo-Indian stone tool collection from western Kentucky. Clovis represents the oldest archaeological visible, relatively well-defined homogeneous archaeological culture in the New World. Clovis also has the most geographically extensive archaeological signatures in North America, with Clovis fluted points being present in the archaeological record of all 48 US inland states, parts of unglaciated Canada, Mexico, Central America, and some parts of South America. The Adams site in Christian County, Kentucky was first discovered in the mid-1950s by a local collector and avocational archaeologist Mr. Carl Yannick. The Clovis lithic assemblage from the Adams site represents one of the earliest stone tool technologies in Kentucky, maybe in eastern North America. Carl Yannick systematically collected artifacts from the Adams site up until the 1970s and was able to identify other Clovis sites in the immediate area. More importantly, he recognized the significance of these discoveries and reported his findings to the Kentucky Heritage Commission, KHC. Thomas Sanders of the KHC carried out controlled excavations at the site in 1977. The assemblage was recognized as being the first single-component Clovis site discovered in Kentucky and has one of the rare, pure assemblages of Clovis fluted point manufacture known in North America. The Adams site assemblage offers a unique opportunity to examine the complete sequence of Clovis fluted point manufacture from procurement of toolstone through various biphase blank and fluted preform phases, concluding with the fluting and lateral and basal margin trimming on the finished points. The toolstone that was used to make the stone tools was St. Genevieve chert, also known locally as Hopkinsville chert. The excavations carried out by Thomas Sanders constitute the only professionally controlled exploration of these sites. More work on the Little River Complex sites, and especially the Adams site, would be of great benefit in the understanding of early human occupation in Kentucky and eastern North America. Carl Yannick continued to monitor and collect from the sites that made up what is now recognized as the Little River Clovis Complex, right up until the late 2000s. On the left is a photo of Carl Yannick and his 2009 publication on his favorite 101 artifacts from the Little River Clovis Complex, and on the right, Thomas N. Sanders with his 1990 publication on the Adams site excavations. Here are some maps showing the location of Kentucky in relation to the US. A more detailed map of Kentucky with its closest, largest cities, the green star indicating where the sites are located near Hopkinsville. And below is the location of Christian County in Kentucky. The Little River is a tributary of the Cumberland River, which in itself, via the Ohio River, is part of the Mississippi River watershed system. This is an aerial view of the Little River Clovis complex site locations and their site identifiers. 15 is the state code for Kentucky. CH is the county name for Christian County, and the last number is the archaeological site code. Most US states follow this Smithsonian trinomial system. There are 6 sites that have been identified and named, and a few isolated find spots that have yet to be confirmed as actual sites. I'll start by talking about the Adams site, as it is the most important archaeologically and was the first to be discovered, seen here in a red circle. Closer look at the extent of the site and its relationship to the Little River, visible within the tree line. At this point, the Little River has a north and south fork. The site seen from ground level. These were the contents of just one box of a mixture of tools that Yannick collected from the Adams site. You can see that there are cores, blades, scrapers, utilised flakes and thinning flakes here, plus reduction flakes and debitage. Thankfully, he collected everything that he came across. Some of Carl Yannick's favourite pieces from the Adams site. These images were taken from his book, mentioned earlier in this talk, and the descriptions in red are from his own observations. Here we have 2 late-stage bifaces that refitted after they were broken during production. More artifacts from the Adams assemblage, another late-phase biface refit, a prismatic blade, an early-phase biface hinge fracture, and a fluted point base. probably a production failure during the later stages of fluting or basal thinning, a common occurrence during the later stages of production. Here is a good example of an early phase biphase production failure that was refitted. These refits are good evidence for the site being a manufacturing area and that due to the abundance of high quality toolstone nearby, the Clovis knappers did not need to be too economical when experiencing production failures. Whereas in a lithic poor area, these breakages would have been recycled and used to make other smaller tools and would not be present in the archaeological wrecks. The location of the Bram site, again seen in a red circle. A closer look at the extent of the Brahma site and its relationship to the Little River on the South Fork. Ground level view of the site. An example of one of the boxes of material collected by Carl Yannick at the Brahma site. This selection includes cores, early and middle late phase biphase preforms, scrapers and gravers, plus a fine example of a quartz hammerstone. There are also two almost complete finished Clovis points. Close-ups of one of the blade cores and one of the fluted Clovis points taken from the Yannick publication. This is a map showing the location of the Boyd-Ledford site. The extent of the site and its relationship to the Little River. Here is a selection of artifacts from the Boyd-Ledford site: cores, blades, utilised flakes and biphases in all phases of production. Here's a close-up of an almost complete Clovis point on the left, a late phase fluted preform base and an example of a hinge fractured preform tip. A large core that displays flake scars that some archaeologists argue are similar to the Levallois technology. This is a schist abrader. These abraders were used for grinding and smoothing the lateral edges in the lower sections of the finished Clovis points. Smoothing the edges facilitates the hafting process in that it reduces the risk of cutting through the binding. These are quite rare in the Clovis archaeological record in North America. This schist pictured here has been sourced to Pennsylvania. Here's the location of the Rhoda site. Closer view of the extent of the site and its relationship to the river. Another ground level view of the site. And a selection of pieces from the Rhoda site assemblage, very similar to the assemblages from the previous sites. Here are two examples of early stage production failures and are good examples of hinge fracture breakages. A large blade struck from a nodule of chert. Carl Yannick uses the term decortication to highlight the removal of the cortex from the nodule. Here is the location of the Brinnon site. Here's an aerial view showing the extent of the site. And a ground level view of the area of the site which is on the bank of the Little River. The large round cobble nodules of St Genevieve Chert are found eroding out of the banks all along the course of the river. Here's a selection of the Brinnon site assemblage, again very typical of the other previous site assemblages. And a location of the Azil site. An aerial view of the site and its extent. And a ground level view with the river behind the tree line in the back. Here is a selection of the Azil site material, once again very typical of all the other assemblages. On the left is a late phase unfluted preform that has suggestions of overshot flaking, sometimes called outrepassé, and are associated with the Solutrean technology of southwestern Europe, which some argue give evidence to the Solutrean Clovis connection. On the right is a side-notched blade. Three other unnamed sites that Carl Yannick collected from somewhere along the course of the Little River, circled here in red. As I mentioned earlier, one lithic raw material dominates the Little River Clovis complex assemblage. St Genevieve Chert makes up over 90% of the toolstone present and is sourced at the locations of the sites. The other toolstone present in the assemblage are two chert varieties from the neighbouring state of Tennessee, which are Dovershire and Upper Mercershire. The Schista was sourced to Pennsylvania, some 550 miles to the northeast. It is a variety of Wissahickon mudstone. Future research on this important and unique collection will hopefully include more controlled excavations. It is hoped that in 2021 or 2022, further investigations can take place on the Adams site and on one or more of the other Little River Clovis sites. Carl Yangi has a good working relationship with the landowners and is also well known in the local community. The Little River Clovis complex sites are currently only typologically dated to somewhere between 11,080 plus or minus 40 years to 10,800 plus or minus 35 radiocarbon years BP. That is 13,000 to 12,750 calendar years BP. Going by the oldest reliably dated Clovis site at Lange Ferguson in South Dakota and the youngest at Jake's Bluff in Oklahoma. Further investigations hopefully will provide a secure, reliable radiocarbon date. It is hoped that whilst the collection is being curated at the University of Texas at Austin's Texas Archaeological Research Laboratory, students will be encouraged to carry out postgraduate programs on this collection. As well as encouraging students to study the collection, it is also hoped that public outreach will provide access to the collections. Academic research and public access were part of a mutual arrangement made by Carl Yangi and Charles Michael Collins when the collection was acquired back in 2019. It is also expected that peer-reviewed journal papers will be produced during the curation period and after my colleagues at TAL have finished curating the collection. It is hoped that another publication covering the history, geology, geoarchaeological and lithic analysis regarding these sites and assemblage will also be produced. The Adams site and the other Little River Clovis complex sites represent a large Clovis workshop and campsite in southwestern Kentucky. It lay undisturbed under pasture until the mid-1950s when it was ploughed up by the Amish farmers using wooden horse-drawn ploughs. Due to the circumstances of its discovery, the artifacts display no modern damage. The lithic assemblage at Adams is dominated by bifaces and prismatic blades, and no other Eastern North American site demonstrates this. Plus, the Little River Clovis complex sites offer a rare view of the complete sequence of Clovis fluted point manufacture, coming from early, middle, late preform stages to the finished point. I would like to thank Carl Yannick for contacting me back in 2018 concerning whether we'd be interested in inquiring his collection. I would also like to thank Carl and his family for their hospitality, friendship and continuing involvement in the acquisition process. To Mike Collins, who was instrumental in getting the University of Texas and TAL to agree to take on the collection. My colleagues at TAL for curating the collection and providing the prehistory and research project with resources to study this collection further. To my colleagues in the prehistory research project for assisting in the study of these artifacts. To my friend and colleague Sergio Ayala, who spent 72 hours driving the truck and myself to Kentucky and back to Texas with the collection. To my colleagues at the Lithics Study Society for setting up this conference, and to the organisation committee for running this conference so smoothly. And to you, all of you who were listening, thank you.